Welcome to Modular Wild. In the following program, we will be exploring the exciting area of Eurorack modular synthesizers. Our first segment explores the Dave Jones Design, O-Tool, Oscilloscope, and Audio Tools Eurorack module. Alright, and welcome to a segment called Profile. Today we're going to be looking at the Dave Jones Design, O-Tool, Oscilloscope, and Audio Tools Eurorack module. Let's go ahead and power it on. So the O-Tool, Oscilloscope, and Audio Tools module is fairly straightforward in its layout. You have an LCD here at the top. Immediately below that, you have 4 buttons that are going to allow you to move through the various modes as well as change parameters within those modes. Right below that, you have a series of 3 jacks going down, and they're tied in rows. So like this jack is tied to this jack to this jack, this jack to this jack. And the way they work is you can feed an audio signal or a sub-audio signal into, let's say, for example, input 1, and then you can take that same signal and then feed it out to a VCA or a mixer or a filter or anything like that. Input number 2 works very similar, or actually identically, to input number 1. That is, you feed a signal into here, and then you can also pipe it out from here. So basically these work as multiples. So this is a multiple of this, and this is a multiple of this. Now immediately below that, you have a trigger in section. This section down here is going to be used to trigger in the oscilloscope modes. So let's jump right into one of the first modes that you'll see when you first turn on your O-Tool, and that is the single scope oscilloscope. We're going to take a triangle out from our audio frequency generator down here. We're going to pipe it into input 1. There we are. And there's our triangle wave. So if I change my frequency, you can see it update in real time. You can change the magnification here. Our time base, basically zooming out. There you go, all the way out to about 5 seconds. And then immediately to the right of that, you have a couple of different trigger modes for the oscilloscope. So right now those aren't exactly active because I don't have an external trigger coming in. So let me just go back to my mode number 1. There we go. And immediately to the right of that, you have our voltage scale. So right now I'm in plus or minus 10 volts DC. But if I wanted to change that, I could. So right now I'm in plus or minus 5 volts DC, or plus or minus 10 volts AC, 0 to 10 volts, 0 to 5 volts, and then back to square one. Cool, so that's our first mode. Now some of these parameters are going to carry over as we move into the different modes here, so you'll see that here in a moment. Let's go right into mode 2. This is going to be our dual trace layered mode. So right here you can actually visualize 2 waveforms at the same time. Right now we're looking at our triangle wave going into input 1, but I'm going to take a sine wave out from my IntelliGel Dixie over here off camera. And I'm going to feed that into input 2 down here. So we should see a little bit of movement. There we go. So now the green waveform is our IntelliGel Dixie, and the red waveform is our audio frequency generator. I can change the frequency of my IntelliGel Dixie, and you can see the waveform update in real time. Very useful tool for visualizing your waveforms. So that is our dual layered mode. Let's go into our dual stacked mode. I think this is going to be my favorite one here. Now here you can view 2 different waveforms, one on the top, one on the bottom. So the one on the top is our audio frequency generator triangle wave. I can change the frequency of that if I want to. And then the bottom one is of course our IntelliGel Dixie. I can change the frequency of that waveform as well. Now this works for both audio rate and sub-audio rate. Right now I happen to be using, for the most part, audio rate. And then the next one is going to be our levels. So this is going to allow us to see the display of our levels. And you can change this switch to go a little slower, or you can go faster. slow, fast. Okay, so that's our levels. Moving right along to mode number 5. These are our VU meters, or our peak meters. You have various changes you can do, plus or minus 2.5 volts, plus 5, and plus 4 decibels. Okay, let's go right into the next mode. Mode number 6, our spectrum analyzer. Here you can visualize the frequency content of your signals coming in. So here you basically can set the top frequency. So there it's going to be 20K. If I hit that, then my top is 10K. If I hit that, my bottom or my top is 5K, and then 2.5K. Now you also have an option to change from linear or logarithmic, and you can also magnify right there. So if you need to see it a little bit better, you can. Personally, I find logarithmic a little bit more useful, and then you can kind of move through the modes until you see exactly what you want. So fairly straightforward and easy to use, which I like very much. Now let's go into our next mode here. This is going to be our XY display, probably one of the most intriguing of these. So you can change slower, faster, obviously right here from our buttons. And this is giving you just another visualization tool to see your waveforms. And I got some pretty interesting results clicking over here, my voltage scale. It's almost like my own TV show. Fairly interesting stuff. So that is my XY mode. Now let's go into mode number 8. This is our frequency meter and tuner. This is going to allow me to view the frequency coming in. So right now, since I have 2 inputs, let's just take one input. At input 1, this is from my audio frequency generator, and it's telling me the exact frequency in hertz of the signal coming in and the approximate scale value. So that says that's a D8. Plus or minus right there. Or actually plus, I'm sorry. Okay. So you can also use this as a tuner. Haven't quite delved into that area yet, but I will get there. And now let's go into our last mode, the voltmeter. So here you can read volts coming in. This would be fairly useful if you were going to need to read that out when you're doing electronics projects or anything like that. So let me actually take a low frequency signal from my IntelliGel Dixie over here. I'll take a same sine wave, but this time I'm going to go into input 1 so I can see what that readout is. So there's my low frequency sine wave, and you can see it going into the positive and the negative area of that. So fairly useful tool here in front of us. I have gotten tons of use out of this module, and I think it's one of the great ones so far. So that, in a nutshell, is our first segment profile. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it very useful. And go out on the web, find out more information about this entirely useful module. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to Modular Wild. Join us in our next segment where we look at one of the most popular and useful modules in the Eurorack market. Welcome to Maths Minute. This is a segment dedicated to the Make Noise Maths. This time we will be showing you how to patch Maths as a VCO, all in 1 minute. Before we jump into the patching, let's talk a little bit about the patch. This is a variation on the typical voltage-controlled pulse patch found in the Maths manual. So what we're going to be doing is feeding random notes from the wired Make Noise Wogglebug over into the Maths. So let's get our clock ready, and we'll go ahead and start the patching and go for 1 minute. So here we go, starting. All right. We're going to take some random notes from the wired Make Noise Wogglebug. We're going to go into the both input of our Maths. So right there, we should actually be triggering notes from the Maths. To get our sound out, or audio out, we're going to take from the end of rise output and patch into our mixer right over here. And there we have some notes over here. We can use the fall setting to control the pulse width of our output right there. And then we can use the rise dial to control the frequency. And then you can further vary the patch by adjusting log, linear, or exponential. And that, in a nutshell, is the first segment of Maths Minute. Welcome back to Modular Wild. In one of our last segments, we will be taking a look at how to create a complex patch using a large modular system. And welcome to another segment of Modular Wild. This one is called Patch It, and what we're going to do in this segment is, without any preparation whatsoever, we're just going to try and patch as much as we can, fill the 8 inputs available to us over 2 different mixers in our setup, and just go in, no plan, like I said, whatsoever. So I have no idea what I'm about to do. I do want to say just in advance that I'm not exactly planning on necessarily using this over here, MIDI CV to CV module, but who knows. But what I do know is I want to go in for about maybe 5-10 minutes, do some patching, get all the inputs on my 2 mixers filled, and once I get a nice sound going and I really like it, I'm going to take it from there and then maybe tweak some of the little nuances of the patch. I'm going to start out with an idea. Let's go ahead and start the clock right now, and I'm going to go ahead and start with an idea I had, maybe getting a cool frequency modulation sound. So for that, I'm going to go to my bottom section over here, taking the bottom row of my A155 over here, and I'm going to take the post out and go into here, right there into my CV input. So I'm primarily going to be using notes for that, but I am going to be patching frequency modulation into some of these steps over here. So I'm going to take my outputs from here. Oh, and by the way, as we're flying along here, there's going to be 2 sources of audio that you'll be seeing in your different, you'll be hearing here. One is going to be in our mixer down here in the bottom section, and the other, if we go up to the top here, in our top section, our audio is going to be piped into this mixer up here at the top. So that's going to be where I'm going to be feeding audio as we go forward. So let's just keep on going and see what happens. So I'm taking a square wave, and I'm going to be going into my filter over here, my low pass gate, audio input. That's my first patch. And then I'm going to take, let's see, audio out of that. I'm just going to start with this and then go right there into my input 1. I don't have any signal yet, but that's expected because I don't have anything triggering my gate over here. So I'm going to take one of my trigger outputs from my A155, probably trigger row 1. Let's take that and just use that as a starting point. Okay, so there we go. That's our first measure of sound there. So now I'm going to take and patch some frequency modulated sounds. So I got 3 more cables coming up. I'm going to be taking from my second A110, and I'm going to be patching a square wave into step number 4 right there. And then I'm going to be taking, let's see, a saw wave here and going into step 7. Let me change the octave of this. There we go. And let me actually do something about my triggers here, because I just want to hear. What I have so far. Okay, I like that. Now I'm going to take some of my digital random noise over here as well on my A117. I'm going to patch that into step 1. Okay, so we're off to a good start so far. Now, let me go to my top section up here, because I know I wanted to use my A149 random controlled voltages. So for that, I'm going to need to trigger it with something. So I'm going to go with my A147 in my bottom section down here. And I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to take that back because I might need to use that a little bit later. Let me get a longer patch cable. And then I'm going to start over here my clock out from my A154. Go up into the top section, clock in, up here at my random control voltages. Got a little bit of activity. Got some random notes. So now I'm going to take that output, and I'm going to actually take it and let's just go right into our tapped BBD module over here, because he might want to get in the game here soon. So now let me get a cable, and let's go out from our BBD and go into our mixer up here in the top section and see what we got so far. Not hearing a lot of signal yet. I might want to input something. There's my clock noise, so I know something's there. I got a little bit of activity. So now I want to take maybe some kind of frequency signal, high frequency. Let's take our A145, maybe let's take this waveform, go right into our BBD, audio in. Bring my mix down a little bit. All right, we got some movement here. All right, now we're going to take some random noise, and I'm just going to take some white noise, and I'm going to feed it into this extreme filter over here, the A106. Let's go into our low pass in. There we go. And then I'm going to take the output of that, and I'm going to go up into my mixer. So here we go, output. All right, so we got a little bit of movement here. And then I'm going to take actually my output from the bottom section of my A155, and I'm going to go into my pre-out and patch it right into there. Alright, so we got some nice little movement here. We still have some ground to cover as far as filling some of the inputs in our two mixers, but I think we'll be able to do it. And let's keep on going until we patch as much as we can. So I'm going to take the post out as well from, let's see, the top section of the A155, and then patch it into CV number 3 over here just for the heck of it. So that's actually our noise being output up here. I can change, well, my noise content's not going to change there, but I can change my rate, level of my noise going out. And maybe try a little bit of cross modulation, going down to my A110s. Okay, now let's get a little bit more modulation going on here. Take the output of our A147, sign out. And let's go into something. Let's go up to the A188-2, right up there. Let's slow down the frequency of that. Check where my output is there, number 4. Now my other A147 waveform, I'm going to actually take the saw down from there. And I'm going to try and, let's see, let's modulate CV input number 2 of my gate over here. Okay, let's get some more audio in mixer number 2 because that mixer down there is feeling a little bit lonely. So I'm going to actually take the output from my sine wave right here, patch into my VCA. There we go. And then I'm going to take my saw from over here, my first 110, go into audio number 2. And I'm going to take my output from there and go over here into input number 3. Now I need something to trigger that, so I'm going to probably take, let's see, row number 2 here, the trigger 2. I'm going to go into, let's see, my envelope. I'm going to take the output of my envelope, go into my VCA. There we go. There we go, we got a nice little movement going on there. Alright, now let's take our pre-out from our A155, go into the quantized CV input here. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing with this, but I'm going to figure something out here in a moment. I'm going to take my CV output from here, and let's just go into our second A110 over here, which is actually frequency modulating. There we go. We got a nice little signal going on there. Now my A145 up here at the top is actually in my high frequency, but I think I could actually do something a little bit special with that. Let's see, what can I do with that? Let's take this waveform, reverse saw, go into our ring mod up here. There we go. And I'm going to actually take output number 1 over here of this, and let's actually ring mod that. There we go. And then let's take the output of our top ring mod and then go into the input up here. So now we're thickening up our sound a little bit. Now why don't we take our gate output from our A155, patch into the A140 down here. So we have something being triggered down there. And let's see, what can we do with our envelope? What do we have free here? Let's take our output of our envelope and go over to our LFO. Just maybe change a little bit up here. A147. Things might get a little bit strange here. Bring up my CV. I may actually want to switch to this in the medium setting over here. Okay, we're getting some fairly interesting results, I think. Let's see, what else can we patch up here? I still have a few A110 outputs free, so why don't I take, let's see, triangle wave out into the top ring mod. And then maybe even take my output 2 over here and go into the YN of my ring mod here. And then take the XY out, or my ring mod out, right up here. Now we still have 2 outputs down, or 2 inputs, I'm sorry, down in the bottom that we have not utilized yet. So let's see if we can't find something to put into those up there. Why don't we do... We have a sine wave down here. That might give us something. Let's take our sine wave out. There we go. And let's actually do something with this. Where can we patch this? Let's go into here. A voltage controlled resonant filter. Then we'll take the output from there, grabbing into my other cables. Take my mix out, and go down into input 4. Alright, so we have some fairly interesting results going on, and we only have 1 input left that we need to fill. Now what could we put in that last one? That's the big question here. Well, you know what we could do is actually create a big crush going on in our sample and hold and use that. So why don't we take a triangle out and go into our, let's see, sample in right there. And let's get another waveform. Let's see. I don't know if we necessarily have to use that one, but I'll mult my tapped BBD and go into there. So now that I'm patching 2 audio rate signals, should get a fairly decent bit crushed effect going into input 2 down here. And that's the basic setup. All right, and welcome to the first segment of a little thing I like to call feedback. This is based on basically a question I got online regarding ring modulation and what kind of things that I personally like to use it for. Someone left a comment on one of my YouTube videos. So what I like to personally use it for is to distort audio and or create very unusual sounds. So let's give a little demonstration of that, and I'll tell you what's going on in our patch here. The blue cable is coming from my audio player, sorry about that, and it's going to be patching a drum loop or a loop into our ring mod up here. The red cable is actually going to be patching in a sine wave from an audio rate VCO. So without further ado, let's just jump right in and listen to the first one. It's basically a synthesizer loop here. So there we have a nice little distorted sound, nice and crunchy. I can manually change the octave of my oscillator to vary the distortion. Getting nice little plucky squelches right there. I actually like that. Right there, I'm just changing the manual tuning. And so forth. I'm changing the octaves here. So that's one thing you can use it for. I also have a drum loop here. Here we go. So this is another thing I like to use it for, to distort drum loops. Not too happy about the lower octaves, but this kind of higher octave I really like right here. Especially this one right here. It's one of my favorite ones right there. It's almost giving me a little conga to add on to my little drum loop right there. And then, of course, that's just with a sine wave. I could also use any other type of wave going into my ring mod. I'll try a few waves out here. I'll go triangle wave now. Here we go. Change my octaves a little. A little more crunchy, not so much ringy to me. Right here, I'm going to change my waveform into a square or pulse wave. So it's much more distorted here. I'm going to adjust my pulse width. And right there is where my pulse width goes into the unhearable range. And then lastly, I'm going to go into a saw wave. And I'm going to change my octaves a little. And there I'm kind of finding my little section right there where I am more familiar with the ring mod type sounds to be in. At any rate, this is the first section of feedback. It's mainly focused on answering questions that people might have, or the comments people might have about something I did or in one of my previous videos, or that they might want to ask me, just my personal take on it. So I hope this answered your question. This has been Modular Wild. We hope you found these segments interesting and exciting. Please stay tuned for future segments exploring further the world of Eurorack synthesizers.